Welcome to the latest episode of the Federal's Worldly Voice, a weekly video show that looks closely at trending international issues. There's never a dull moment these days with Donald Trump at the helm in the United States. The latest to make waves is the popping up of a new global group called Core 5 or C5. Though not yet formally announced, the possibility of this new grouping has set the world talking as it is rife with implications. C5 reportedly comprises the US, China, Russia, Japan, and India. This will be a global body competing with the powerful Group of Seven Nations or the G7. The White House has denied that such a proposal exists, but the speculation refuses to die down. What gives the C5 a degree of credibility is the source of this news, which is the Trump administration. The C5 is believed to be mentioned in the original draft of the US's National Security Strategy paper. The shortened version of this paper was released to the media, but the C5 did not figure in this. But the US media, quoting sources, said Core 5 was in the longer version of the strategy paper. C5 fits into the logic of the Trump mindset, especially in leaving out Europe. The US president has made no bones about his disdain for the European Union, despite their historical alliance. In the talks he has initiated between Russia and Ukraine to end the war, Trump has marginalized European NATO allies to the point where he has barely tolerated their presence in the ongoing negotiations. So, if Europe does not find a place in the C5, that is not a surprise. How would then one explain the presence of the US's biggest rivals, China and Russia? Trump appears to be following the dictum if you can't fight them, join them. In the case of Russia, Trump's proximity to Vladimir Putin was always talked about. In the ongoing war with Ukraine, Trump presented Putin's demands as part of his own peace proposal to give up Ukrainian territory, for instance. A shocked Ukraine and Europe are attempting to figure out how to deal with the situation. As for China, for all his visible opposition to the Xi Jinping administration, Trump has spared them punitive tariffs, though they are among the biggest oil importers from Russia. For the US establishment, China is today the biggest rival, even bigger than Russia. But Trump could be appending existing equations with the C5 move. India figuring in the C5 team is perhaps a surprise, as New Delhi has been repeatedly slighted by Trump in recent times. Not that it has unduly bothered the government in New Delhi. On the contrary, the recent visit of Putin to India and the number of agreements the two nations signed would have made it clear to Trump that New Delhi was not willing to give up its traditional friendship with Russia. If the Putin Modi bonhomie was expected to irritate Trump, that does not appear to have been the case. There were voices of concern in the US Congress on the optics of the Putin Modi relationship, no doubt, but it left Trump unfazed. The US president has gone a step ahead by adding India to the C5 list, if he indeed has, going by media speculations. But the only inconsistency in the logic is Trump placing India on par with Russia, China, and Japan. What is it that qualifies New Delhi to be in the C5 group? It's the world's largest democracy with the highest population, agree. This by itself would not have jockeyed India into the C5 slot simply because the Core 5 group is conceptualized as an alternative or even a competitor to the group of seven nations in terms of the high degree of development and their military power, particularly. If true, India should be flattered to find itself in such a hallowed group. The other possibility that enabled India to be in the top slot is its huge market. Trump, always a businessman first, would want this market opened up to US companies. What better way than to massage the egos of the Indian political leadership and the establishment in return for a bigger share of the market pie? Let's not forget, the US has been negotiating with India for the last several months to sign a new trade deal. Finding a place in C5 should make Indian negotiators more amenable to this agreement. Already, reports quoting US officials say that India has offered the Trump administration its best ever deal in the ongoing trade discussions. If true, with a G7 on the one hand and a C5 on the other hand, Trump will have pocketed the best of both worlds. Any benefits for India, however, is incidental. Thank you.